Thanks for the introduction. I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about how large language models will be impacting business applications, how they are impacting them today, and what's still to come. But before I start, just want to briefly mention just how excited I am to be kind of working in this field at this point, right? As was just mentioned, I've been working in language understanding for quite some time. And this kind of state where we are in today kind of felt elusive for a very long time, right? And we've truly kind of crossed the threshold with the advent of ChatGPT, with being able to express what I mean in very few words, and the machine kind of replying in a way that it seems to understand what I mean and what I want from it, right? Clarify the answer, or no, you've made a mistake in understanding the question, and it really reacts. So it's truly across the threshold, and it's super exciting to be working in this field right now. And I think there was already a glimpse of that on the horizon 3 years ago with the release of GPT-3, right? And kind of seeing that machines start to understand language. And I know that understanding is kind of a contentious term, so I want to really clearly define what I mean by understanding and really make it very explicit. So this is really a game changer, right? That machines now understand words in their context in a way like we also do, right? And this has a huge impact on how we interact with applications, because of course language is how we interact with knowledge, right? And we use this kind of language interaction in every application that we deal with during our business work, right? So if I think of now working at SAP, the applications that we create, a lot of them are about finding the right piece of information at the right point in time to act upon it. And now with LLM-powered digital assistants, right, just getting to know a complex application like an SAP business application becomes so much easier, because you could ask questions about the documentation at some point, right, and get your contextualized answer and don't have to go through the documents. You could also think of interacting actually with the structured data in that way, right? Just querying a structured database is usually very difficult, because you have to be an expert in formulating the query language, right? And now that is just simple, because the LLMs understand language just as we do and can make sense of the context. And then, of course, also in everyday business, we believe that it's not only about finding information, but also about we have some insights that we want to store in a document, right, and transmit it to others. But usually it's not just one party that we want to transmit it to. It's different levels of abstraction and different audiences who need different kind of messaging. And again, LLMs help us there and will improve how we can communicate information that we believe should be shared. And on the other side, right, all of this information that is communicated is not necessarily for us in the right frame of context. And again, we can use LLMs to help us to frame it in the right way, and ultimately maybe even extract structured data, right? From business documents, you have invoices and you want to extract the structured data from it. You can use LLMs to help you extract the data and store it in your database. And last but not least, of course, we're also using language, programming languages, right, to automate. And that's what business applications are all about, right? And digitize processes. And because the capabilities of LLMs to create code and allow us to interact with code very naturally and actually program machines using language, this will enable flexible business applications and business processes. And it will have such a huge impact, right? Already has an impact today. We see it in a lot of different applications already that have been publicly announced. So now you might think, halftime, I'm already done with my presentation, right? It's what is there to come? And yes, LLMs and the language understanding capabilities of foundation models will transform already now many parts of our businesses. But it's mostly about text and code right now, and maybe some question answering. But aren't we missing something in the area of business data, right? It's not just text and code. We also have databases, Excel sheets, time series data, knowledge graphs, right? What about that? Well, I just said, right? I mean, I can formulate queries against the data. So what's the point? Well, the point is I can't predict anything about the data in the same way that I can now use large language models to work basically on any language text-based tasks, right? I'm still kind of stuck there. And let me make this very, very explicit. What is stuck? So if I ask ChatGPT, can you predict if and when a customer will pay an invoice? It correctly answers that as a language model, it cannot directly predict a specific customer paying an invoice, but it can help me create a model that actually does this prediction for me. It can even write it for me, right? It's amazing. But it's that really what we want? I mean, the true game-changing nature of LLMs has been that I can use the same model for a variety of different tasks, right? Without doing retraining anything. What ChatGPT is suggesting here is to basically do it the regular way, right? State-of-the-art neural machine learning on structured data is high touch. You basically collect your training data. So for example, for each customer, invoices and their payment dates, and then you create a task-specific model that you then need to maintain and need to continuously retrain and operate and maintain and work with, right? That's not really what we see right now with language models, right? That's still old school. Why can't we just use LLMs to solve that? Well, LLMs are trained on language, right? And tabular data is like with cryptic strings and like numerical data that we all know doesn't really work well with LLMs is a key part of the tabular data and structured data that we have, right? So you can't just feed the data into the LLM, but there is a potential solution. And that's not something that is out there right now, but I think that will, if we really do that, it will additionally change how we do business in maybe as impactful a way as LLMs have changed it already right now. The solution is to look at structured data and put it into context and train foundation models in a similar way like large language models are trained, right? Large language models are trained by predicting the next word given a context. If we translate that to business data, we can also formulate data to be present in context. So for example, as a knowledge graph, right? And then learn to predict the next piece of content. And that's not a vision, that's actually reality. There has been research on that topic for years, knowledge graph embeddings, right? Also, the models that are created there actually have multitask capabilities to classify nodes and to predict new links, but they haven't really been applied to enterprise data. But I think the concepts hold, right? And what we want to get to and where the next change will come from is to really combine generative AI from text and business data. And then you can ask questions like, will customer 42 pay for their last invoice? And customer 42, of course, being kind of a placeholder for your customer ID or even the name of your customer. And the LLM will, the text part will understand that, right? And then have the foundation model on structured data and text answer the question that customer will pay the invoice in time with 98% likelihood based on their payment history in your database, right? It's not coming out of the model, out of the text model, but really out of the, I think the share has stopped. Let me share again. So really coming out of the foundation model on structured data. And again, this model should be trained on your linked enterprise data and should be multi-purpose, right? And covering exactly the cases that LLMs cannot cover. This is still a vision, right? This is not there yet, but I think it's something that we shouldn't forget, that LLMs, while they are truly game-changing, they don't change the game completely yet, right? We can't do everything that we're doing with machine learning right now with the existing foundation models, and we still want to work on that. And I know probably lots of people in the audience are already thinking about that and also working on that. And I'm super, super excited to keep working on that. And this is really kind of just a call to action to say like, hey, let's all think beyond just language, right? And what we can do with LLMs, and keep in mind that there's still some unexplored space out there. And the unexplored space being truly founded on the insight that, well, our knowledge resides, of course, in text, but there will always be structured data, right? Like tables and time series that will that we will also need to tap into and make available to generative AI. And with that, want to thank you for listening, and yeah, happy to take any questions.